So it's now live.
Okay. I'd like to call the regular council meeting of June 14th to order. And we'll move into the agenda. But first, I'd like to remind people that they can, if they come up with a question during the council meeting, please email your question to info@cumberland.ca using subject line question period. You don't have to wait till the end of the meeting to ask your question. Although we will answer it at the end of the meeting, we'll still accept it. Okay, so approval of the agenda.
So move.
Move approval. Second.
Second, all in favor? Carried. Next, adoption of the minutes. Councillor
Move it up.
Spurwell. Councillor Brown, all in favor? Receipt of committee minutes.
Move receipt.
Councillor Spruill, second. All in favor? Carried. Next, that council received a delegation from the Hearth, Patio, and Barbecue Association of Canada regarding an industry proposal to improve air quality. Councillor Spruill, seconder. Councillor Brown, all in favor? Carried. Hello, Jeff.
Hello, Mayor Baird. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. Welcome.
Thank
You're
you.
not all on yet.
Oh,
Technology.
yes, don't be talking.
Yes.
It is amazing. There's people on here from St. John's, Newfoundland, all the way to Vancouver, across the country. So it's interesting.
So would you like to introduce everybody?
Absolutely. So my name is Jeff Loader. I'm the Director of Public Affairs for the Hearth, Patio, and Barbecue Association of Canada. I'm joined by Laura Litchfield. Laura is the President of HPBA Canada. I'm also joined by, is John Crouch here yet? I don't see John, but John will may be joining. John is with the Hearth, Patio, and Barbecue Association, which is a North American association and to which we are an affiliate. Also joined by Vice President of Pacific Energy, Corey Iverson. Pacific Energy employs 170 people in Duncan, BC, making wood burning appliances. I'm also joined by Chris Bowen with Pioneer Fireplaces, operating in the Valley in multiple communities in the area, and Jamie Payne, who is owner and operator of Norris Heating, based out of Courtney. Pleasure to be here, Mayor.
Well, welcome. I look forward to your presentation and hear what you have to say.
Absolutely. So would you like us to get started?
You please do.
Okay, well, I think it's easier if I share my screen. I think so. I'm going to turn that off, share this. Here we go. Okay, so everybody can see it?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you very much, Mayor and councillors, for your time today and this evening, depending on where you're to. I just wanted to start off by saying we're here in the spirit of collaboration. We're here with the full support of the Hearth, Patio, and Barbecue industry across Canada. We had a very long conversation as an industry across the country around this issue and around the Comox Valley, to be quite frank. And industry would like to have and work with the local municipalities in the pursuit of improving air quality. And we're going to bring whatever resources that are required to do that. And that includes industry in British Columbia and local industry who have joined us here tonight. So moving to what we're here to talk about, and I'm going to go through this quickly because the real experts are the people who've joined me, and I think they can speak to some of the details much better than I can. But in terms of the objective, we both share, both as an industry and obviously as a community, improving air quality is extremely important. Industry on our side, the wood burning appliance manufacturing industry in particular, has been working on technologies to limit the impact on air quality from wood burning for over 30 years. And it's been largely driven by industry. And really here today, the three concepts, we call them the three pillars. They're not new concepts. What we are expressing here today is a new renewed commitment for industry to support these three pillars and these three initiatives. And I'm going to sort of walk through what the industry is prepared to do and what we're hoping to collaborate on. The first pillar is obviously a sustainable dry and seasonal wood supply for clean burning. People need access to a consistent source of affordable, dry, and seasoned wood. This is, a scientifically known reality of wood burning. Low moisture leads to reduced emissions, both PM emissions as well as greenhouse gases. And it enables the technology in modern wood burning appliances actually to be fully utilized and its benefits realized. Second is replacing older uncertified stoves with modern efficient certified stoves, many of which perform upwards of 95% better than the older stoves. That maximizes heat and it minimizes emissions. And finally, there's a cultural sort of normative element to the program. There are various programs out there today, and local industry can speak to their existing efforts. But what we're effectively going to do is double down and ensure that people have access to whatever programs, training, and information required to optimize the advanced emission reducing technology in modern wood stoves. And together, particularly with your partnership, these pillars can be implemented and will produce results. We've seen it in various places in North America. And to be very frank, I mean, wood burning is a sustainable source of energy and a sustainable source of heat. It was really the pillar of how certain parts of the world really I guess the word is, towards green technologies and those things, particularly Europe. So moving to pillar one, what we are proposing, and we've already initiated some of the conversations, and Chris can speak more to that. We are looking at a retail wood lot that can produce 2,500 to 5,000 cords of properly seasoned and dry wood. We're looking at the various technology and ways that could be accomplished, and in discussions with existing local wood suppliers, as well as talking to woodlot operators in Victoria, in the United States, and doing extensive research around how we could develop this concept specifically with the goal of improving air quality. And that in and of itself, I think, is really what is, I think, new here. That obviously would reduce PM and GHG emissions. It would provide the stability needed for people to invest in the technology we're talking about here and improving efficiency. Second pillar two is a targeted wood stove exchange program. This is not a new concept. But what is new here today is that industry is coming to the table and signaling that if the community is prepared to work with us, we will bring our resources and do whatever is possible to remove older stoves and replace them with new modern certified to the modern standards that exist in Canada, top of the line technology. And we would remove those from, we say recycle, but they would be destroyed because we don't want those older stoves to operate in some other place or in other homes, obviously. The last policy outcome here is really, I think, one of the key things we would like to discuss is how industry can help on the financial side. And we've had multiple discussions with local industry around this because we know there is a cost associated with, with exchange out programs and things like that. Finally, given we're talking about behavior, and whether it is operating a modern certified stove, whether it is making the decision whether to put in green or dried wood, we are talking about the behavior of people. And so there is an element of this that needs to be around education. And this is obviously, there's burn smart programs out there now, things of that nature. We've had a lot of discussions about how we can ramp those programs up and provide really a level of flexibility that we're not sure has always been there in terms of the needs of individuals and individual clients. So our request, and is really, there's three elements of this. One is we're asking for your support to implement this. At this time, we are not asking for any financial or in-kind specific. We don't have any specific requests. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is we're not at a point where we could, I think, articulate those at the level that you would require to make a decision, number one. But number two is our goal, and this is the more important of the two, is for industry to do this to the extent we can by ourselves, but in partnership with the Village of Cumberland. Third, we are asking that you revoke the restrictions that are in place on the use of wood stoves in new construction. I don't want to belate or go on too long around this. Our position as an organization is that bans of that nature or restrictions or prohibitions, whatever way you describe it, are not productive, and they don't improve air quality, number one. Number two, they send a signal that wood burning is incompatible with initiatives climate change adaptation, and quite frankly, improving air quality. The problem is not new certified stoves, it's older stoves, it's unseasoned wood. So that's our perspective on that. So I'll just sum it up, I guess, and then I will turn it over to questions, because I know my colleagues can add a lot here. Wood burning is a sustainable source of energy. Yes, there's no question that we have a common problem in the sense of wood burning, if it's not properly conducted, does release PM and carbon and other emissions. But working together, we can improve that reality and address it, quite frankly. And wood burning as a technology and as a source of heat is quite advanced, and we're quite confident we can get there. So I don't want to leave, and we as an association don't want to leave any perspective or impression that we don't support good regulation, because we do. And we've put up a recent example of a regulation that industry supports, which was recently adopted in Quebec City, which will ban the use of uncertified stoves by 2026, allows for, in smog days, things of that nature, that there would be no wood burning. And provides very aggressive incentives to replace older stoves with new modern certified stoves. So there's a regulation. So I don't want anybody to think we're not agreeable to working on regulation and guidelines around that, because we certainly are as a part of that. It's the banning of wood burning appliances, regardless of whether they emit high degree of emissions or low, that we do take issue with. So Mayor, I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm going to turn it over to questions, because as I said, the real experts are those who are here with me.
Okay, thank you very much. Can we have, yes, please. Thank you very much. Just a question, can we get a copy of that presentation?
Yes, I sent a copy. Yep.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep, no problem.
Okay. Is there someone on council that would like to Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, thanks very much for the presentation. I hope that the last bit about revoking the bylaw about no new appliances, solid fuel burning appliances in new construction isn't a deal breaker for us working together, because in my mind, that's not something that I would support. We had really detailed and good presentations in our last term regarding the health effects of particulate matter, 2.5 micron, and basically how it enters the bloodstream directly, causes all sorts of problems, including just general inflammation of the body, but especially problems for people with heart disease, and has increased hospital visits on days when we have really bad air quality here. And the health professionals have said there is no safe level of 2.5 micron particulate matter and lower that enter the bloodstream directly. There's no safe level of that. So I don't support increasing the amount of solid fuel burning appliances. I do support converting those older ones so that we can lower those levels. I know all of you aren't from the Comox Valley, but we do have the second worst air quality in BC during the winter months. And that's because of the inversion that happens. And so any particulate matter released into our airshed stays in our airshed. And therefore it gets absorbed by all the people breathing it. And as I said, there are all those health issues to consider. So that's not something I'm looking at revoking, but I am interested in what work you guys have done in the southern Vancouver Island, because I understood that there was a pilot program with the forestry companies where they're to be using the wood waste in different ways as opposed to burn piles. And I'm just wondering what kind of partnerships have arose, if any, out of that pilot program.
I'm not familiar with the pilot program that you're talking about. So I don't know if Laura, Chris, you want to weigh in here. We do have some comments on partnership with local wood providers and things like that. But Chris, did you want to?
I'm also not familiar with a specific pilot project that you're speaking of, but up in your area, one of your local wood suppliers has agreements with one specific forestry company where he's doing just that. He's going in before the slash burn or piles are put together, and he's extracting all the usable logs, and then he's actually forming the piles for them. So yeah, that is already happening, and that is brand new. That's come into light in the last 3 or 4 months.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? No, she's put her mic off. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not interested in revoking the bylaw we have. In fact, I really like the idea of adding that the existing wood stoves we have need to be certified in order to continue to operate. Because that's not included in our bylaw right now. I'm curious about, I have looked into trying to get a solid supply of dry seasoned wood to the Comox Valley, and I have spoken to the contractor that has the permits in this area, and he is not delivering dry seasoned wood. So that's a problem. So I'm not sure how. I very much agree with the 3 pillars, but I'm with Councillor Kettler on the hoping that it's not a deal breaker not to revoke the bylaw, because I think and what we've been doing as a village has been educating the public as much as possible about how to use their wood stove, but also, and something I didn't see in your education slide, is educating people on when they need to get their wood supply in. So I burn a wood stove, and but my husband is able to get the wood for us, and we would not use our stove if we couldn't do it that way, because it is impossible to get a good, clean supply of dry firewood. So I'm interested in the, are you looking at creating a wood lot or working with existing? I'd like to hear more about that.
Okay, so based on conversations that we've had, or myself and a couple others have had over the course of the last couple of years, and seeing this within our businesses, seasoned wood is a major issue. So, you know, taking that initiative, what we've done is you guys up in your area actually have a wood supplier who is at the moment has the capacity to deal with a lot of wood. Right now, he can handle about 2,000 cords per year. But like everybody else, he's not delivering dry firewood. And people are not seasoning firewood. There could be various reasons for that. Maybe it's easier for someone to, you know, pay $100 for a half a cord of dry wood rather than paying out $1,500 to season, you know, their wood for the next 2 years. So I've had, you know, we've been working together on a concept for this wood lot, which would entail basically a retail scenario where consumers can either pick up or have wood delivered in a variable quantity, right? So they don't have to put 8 cords in their yard. If they only need a half a cord, they can come pick it up and take it away, and it's dry. Anything that would be sold out of this lot would be dry. There's some need for investment just to expand the capacity of the company, which all comes from private sector. We've you know, we've already gotten to the point where that is possible. Some of the holes we have at this point are land. That's not we're nowhere near the end game on that. There are some potential. This is one of the things we're asking of the local politicians is you know, somehow making concessions on that. One of the issues with the restrictions you guys have in place in terms of this investment is it dissuades people, obviously. In an environment where you know, a product is being pushed out of market, it's hard to convince the people that this is going forward. In fact, there's not many people that would want to put in that kind of money. That being said, the investment dollars are there. I mean, it's simply a case of buy-in from you know, municipal and regional governments in your area, and this thing's ready to go. I think I mentioned in the last meeting we're 70-80% of the way there. We need a little bit of tooling and the land. Basically, you know, in a strange way, we need the storefront developed, and outside of that, it's ready to go. And we feel that you know, we don't believe it'll monopolize the market necessarily, but it's going to be significant enough that it's going to take away a lot of that problem that we're experiencing. And we also view that this could be a model for other districts which are dealing with the same issue. The acquisition of dry firewood is very difficult, right? And that's where that stands. And again, it does, you know, that's where that restriction really impedes the progress of that, you know, trying to get people to put the money into this. And again, we feel that dry seasoned wood has a lot of potential to really affect the quality of air in your community in a positive way.
Hey, Chris, I'm going to move on and let Councillor Sproul ask her questions. Do you have any?
Yeah, thanks for your presentation. We have had that presentation before, and the thing about 2 things with the wood supply, all the forests are private managed forests, so we don't have any way of forcing them to sell firewood, and the reason not being able to find a good supply, each year it becomes harder and harder. So that's probably why we'll be switching ultimately. Also, you need quite a bit of space to keep that amount of firewood if you're going to keep it for 2 or 3 years ahead. Not everybody has that kind of room. There have been a lot of concerns from people, well, everywhere, but the Comox Valley have formed groups to express their concerns and to ask municipal governments to support wood burning. I happen to support wood burning if it is done, as you say, with dry wood in an efficient burning machine. I think it's great. We have it. It's all around us if we can get it. We've had pressure to get rid of wood burning stoves altogether, but this was a kind of halfway position to take. There was pressure to remove, when people are selling their houses, to force them to pull their old stove and put a non-wood burning stove. And the logistics of doing that, finding out which house is going to be for sale or has been. So we weren't able to do that. And this was one concession we were able to make. I personally am not in favor of banning wood stoves totally, because there's a lot of people who can't afford. I know it's really expensive, but other forms of heating are very hard on people of a lower income. And also, like my neighbor, he trades his services to get wood. You know, there's a lot more ability for people of a lesser income, say, to burn with wood. So I could never ban it from that reasons, but I'm prepared to support the bill that we are talking about. So I wouldn't be revoking it. Anyway, thank you so much for doing what you're doing, because it is important and you have a good message to give. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Sproul. My opinion is that I'll wait, Councillor Brown, that we went into the bad air quality with the rest of the valley, Comox, Courtney, and the regional district, and we have supported each other in that direction. So I think that is very important, that we're all on the same thoughts concerning this. The other thing is that I've seen a definite drop in the amount of people that are burning wood, and it's just not, it's a combination of a lot of things. And it's one that I see quite regularly is that people are retiring and they don't want to be, it's a huge job having wood in your home. It's going out, finding it, it's storing it, and it's not exactly clean either. And so there is problems with it that people, when they retire, they don't want to have those problems anymore. And I've found that new people coming to the area don't want to be doing all that work. So we really don't get many requests. I don't think we've had one request since we implemented this bylaw to ask for exemption or anything. I've never heard of anybody that was upset that we had this implemented. I really do think it's important for the air quality, and I support the bylaw until the air quality improves. I'm not going back to start in square one again. We've seen a lot of improvement in the air quality in Cumberland since this has been implemented, and we can't go backwards. So Councillor Brown, you had something else you wanted to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to the pilot that happened on the Mid Island. It was done by VIA, Vancouver Island Economic Alliance, and the person who was working on it was Cindy Stern. Anyway, there were many options for using the waste wood. I'm not sure firewood was one of them, but it would be great for you guys to connect with that group and see whether that's another option for accessing wood and dry firewood, turning it into.
Yeah.
So
can I make a quick comment? I appreciate that information, but just to reiterate, in your area, there is
oops, he's frozen.
You're frozen, Chris. All right, well, Mayor, if I could just sort of just a couple of general comments, because there was a couple of themes. So sorry, Chris, just 1 second, if I could. I just want a couple. We're here today in the spirit of collaboration. We are not, and we have made no statement that we don't understand or are not sensitive to the health impacts associated with burning wood in older stoves and things of that nature. I would be interested to know how many wood stoves are not in a home because of the ban. If you've drawn a direct correlation between the ban and improvements in air quality. I mean, so in order to do that, there must have been a clear, there must have been, I don't know how many homes are now there that weren't there before that don't have that, but I don't understand how the ban actually would, or the current bylaw actually deals with the fundamental problem. And that's our position, which is the older stoves need to be replaced. We are firm on the ban on removal of that bylaw, just so we're all on the same page. We do believe, we don't believe that addresses the issue. So I guess, we have a disagreement on that particular issue. I don't think we need to get into a big, heated discussion around that. I don't think that's productive. And what I will say is, wood burning and overcoming the challenges associated with wood burning that is consistent with climate change adaptation and lower PM emissions and other has been done successfully in various places of the world. So the problems and challenges that you've identified are certainly challenges that can be overcome if everybody works together. I would note, that, things like electricity in British Columbia, as they are in the rest of Canada, don't come with other environmental costs, don't come without, $16 billion for Site C that eventually people have to, there's all kinds of other arguments. So look, I would sort of end it there. We think we can overcome the challenges you've identified. We don't agree with the bylaw. And Corey, 2 seconds, buddy. You got your last thing there, and then, Chris, did you want to finish your point?
I was just saying that there is the relationship, like the access to wood, particularly in your region, is already there. Like I said, about 3-4 months ago, a great new development occurred in which a lengthy contract was signed that allows for access to a large supply of wood. On another point, the ban that exists, new construction, would only ever take in clean burning stoves. So, again, as Jeff said, the issue is the old stoves. Those have to go out. The new stoves are they're clean burning as they have to be by law. And that's basically all I wanted to say.
Okay, I would like to thank you, gentlemen and lady for coming and making your presentation tonight. We officially don't make our decision until the next council meeting. So you will hear back from us after that. And I would like to thank you very much for your presentation. And Jeff, are you available if somebody else on council wanted to talk to you at a later date?
Anytime.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming, gentlemen, ladies.
Thank you, councillors.
Good evening. Okay, next we're going to go on to unfinished business. And Larry's gone. Okay, the council received the correspondence from the city of Langley re support for 988 suicide and crisis line initiative.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Yes, Councillor Brown.
Hi. So I was hoping that we could write a letter of support. There apparently there is a motion in the House at some stage, and I just thought it was important to show our support for this initiative. It's asking for a 3-digit suicide and crisis line, so like a 911, but I think it's 988 or something, so that people can call and get assistance when they need.
I think it's a very positive direction to take for anybody that is in that kind of crisis. Sometimes it's very difficult to know when to phone or for the individual to take that step. But it's not only for the person that is contemplating this, this is for the people that are aware that it's going to happen or the person's trying. Okay, Councillor Kettler.
Yeah, and I think there's a resource line. I think it's the 811 is where it connects you to various resources in your area for mental health support and other support. But I think this is like more like, a direct line, like the kids helpline, but for adults, where you can talk to somebody directly and not be redirected to something else. It's more like the actual crisis line. So I think that's an important distinction, and I certainly support that.
Yes, there would be nothing worse than to be put on hold in a situation while they look for somebody to help you. So I think that's very timely. So somebody like to make that motion?
Yeah, I'll move that we write a letter of support to our MP for a 988, a national 3-digit suicide and crisis line.
Seconder?
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Next, on to reports. Recommend that council receive the Heritage Alteration Permit Variance Application 3274 3rd Street 2021-01 HAP report.
Move receipt.
Second. All in favor? Carried.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to introduce this report. The purpose of the report is to seek council approval of a heritage alteration permit for a new development proposed for 3rd Street next to Randall's Auto Body and behind the cannabis store in an L-shaped formation. And the proposal is for a community urban bazaar of 3 small buildings, a stage, entertainment, public open space area, bicycle parking. And then the other 2 requests are for variances associated with the development. One would be to vary the floor to ceiling height of the buildings from 4.2 meters down to 2.4 meters. Currently, the zoning bylaw requires a fairly high floor to ceiling height in the downtown core, because mostly for multi-story commercial buildings. And then the second variance is for to vary the front yard setback from 1 meters to 8.75 meters, and the front yard being of the lot that's behind the True Cannabis store. So the front yard, the front there is Penrith Avenue. So that setback is proposed to be varied. Council staff supports the application for all 3, the heritage alteration permit and the 2 variances. The heritage alteration permit application and variances did go to the Heritage Committee, which also supports the application, citing primarily for it's a good fit with the official community plan. The site provides a different kind of interest in the downtown core that we don't currently have, allowing small businesses to run a trial in these kind of smaller and more affordable places that they can rent to run a test on their trial for their business establishment before maybe committing to a larger space. In terms of the character, it's an all new build, but it's a small development at a human scale, which seeks to invite and draw people in. So it's not something that we've usually seen in the downtown core. It's quite different, but staff and both the Heritage Committee feel it fits in quite well. We also feel that the floor to ceiling height is appropriate to change, because we're not talking about a multi-story building that had a large, high ceiling for its commercial space. It's all in keeping with the design of this kind of bazaar, community bazaar feeling. And the setback also makes sense to vary the setback from Penrith, because the whole development is oriented towards 3rd Street, which makes it also more visible when you walk up and down Dunsmeer Avenue. So it makes sense that, in a sense, the front of the development is from 3rd Street, where people will access it primarily. And that also, of course, allows for an accessible parking space that the applicant is providing on the Penrith Avenue side of the property. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Councilor Kettler?
Yeah, thank you. This is really exciting. I think this is a wonderful, or will be a wonderful, improvement to the downtown. I was just wondering a little bit about the parking, having those multiple vendors in there. it would seem that you would probably need a space for them to load and unload. Was that considered in the application, or are they paying parking in lieu for that space?
Yeah, so they cannot accommodate a loading space. So that is a cash in lieu requirement. That's right. So they have the option to pay cash in lieu. So I did identify that under the heading of zoning bylaw requirements. There's 2 spaces that can't be accommodated. There should have been another space for based on the gross floor area of the three retail, artisan retail units, and then the loading zone. So yes, 2 parking spaces.
Well, I like that they're providing like so much bicycle parking. I think that it's going to be a very important space, probably a hub for bike parking in the downtown. So that's great. But yeah, I could see there being a problem with for those vendors if there's no loading space.
Yeah, we did discuss this with the applicant, and it's such a small site. So trying to fit another parking space in, that would then take away from the green space he has, where he wants to have that space that he can rent out to artists or carvers or whatever who might want to use that space, and then you also have room for the public to gather there, have tables there, that kind of thing. So he has provided more bicycle parking than is required. He thinks of this as being really trying to seek to attract people who will ride there by bike. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I
Sorry.
love this plan. It's awesome. I think it'll be a great addition to the downtown. And I have a couple of questions. So I agree with Councillor Kettler that there are there's 6 different businesses operating on the site. And there is no parking really. There's the 2 in front of Randall's. So that's my first question, is Randall's continuing to operate? Because I'm not sure how that use and the parking in front of that is working with the drawing that I see. So in front of, I just am not understanding. So if we look at page 36, and it's showing the 3rd Street, maybe on the very left is the dispensary, and then that middle place is Randall's. So right now there's cars parked all the way, like in front of Randall's, all the way out to where the new development would be. And he's added a patio, so taking away those parking spots. That's probably 3 spots in there. To have a patio outside dining, and there looks to be an entrance or something to that building. Is that where Randall's is, or is the other place where Randall's is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the entrance is to Randall's. Sorry, the entrance is to Randall's. So that's right. He's moving a little bit of the seating area towards that. The Randall's is under a lease. And my understanding is that they're reviewing that lease arrangement currently. So, or in the near future. So the lease is coming up, but I don't know what the long-term intentions are for the site. So when the lease if it is not renewed, then there would potentially be parallel parking would be accessible from that site. But yes, the Randall's auto body and wasn't a pre-existing use, so there was no specific parking requirements for that one.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll be losing that parking that exists now, and then so that's that feasibly, rather than having. I mean, I hate to put cars instead of patio seating, but it's already a bit of a parking nightmare on 3rd Street, and I wouldn't put the parking there necessarily, but there could be 2 spots where the one parking space is off of Penrith. A second spot could go in there. He's got seating in there right now, but it's quite a dark, I'm not sure it's a really friendly seating area. So that could be another, potentially a loading zone for the businesses. And then also where the bike parking is, the bike parking could be moved slightly or readjusted, and a loading zone could go in there. Having worked in food and beverage for a large part of my life, I know that there are heavy things that you carry into these businesses. And I'm just trying to make sure that this is actually going to function in an appropriate way. I think there definitely needs to be a loading zone. Sorry. Somewhere. And I just think there's room, it's got an awful lot of community space, which is great, but I think we could lose one of the community space, on the Penrith side to an additional parking. If he's open to that.
Yeah, I'm happy to discuss that with the applicant. So as it stands, our zoning bylaw does allow him to have the option of parking cash in lieu. So it's not something we can require. However, I will definitely raise that with him. His vision was really to make it bicycle accessible and draw people who want to ride their bikes. I don't know also what he's planned. If loading happens in the morning or certain times of day when it's maybe not as busy, then possibly the accessible parking stall may double for loading and unloading. But yeah, so the option is really having a discussion with him, because the option for providing cash in lieu is the applicant's.
Okay. Councillor Sproul, do you have any questions?
Not really. I'm more curious. We haven't got a model like this, so it's quite exciting seeing where this will go, and maybe there'll be more of that. So I think it's a pretty bold venture. It's a good use of the space. Reading the letters from the neighborhood, they were all quite happy with it. They thought it was a great improvement. So they're the ones that's going to be sitting by it. But yeah, great idea. Thanks.
So we can approve it tonight with recommendations, or is just a discussion? What you have before us is what we need to discuss to approve. Sorry.
So all the go ahead.
I was going to say I'm happy to move the recommendations, and with the knowledge that staff will go and speak to the developer about the possibility of rearranging the parking in a way that could include a loading zone.
Okay. Seconder to that? Okay, we have actually three things there that we need to approve, so I think we need to follow that. So they get everything. So how about if we do it 1, 2, 3?
Sure. I'll move that council approve the heritage alteration permit 2021-01 HAP for 3274 3rd Street and 2737 Penrith Ave, legally described as Lot 12, Block 10, District Lot 21, Nelson District Plan, VIP 522A, Lot 11, Block 10, District Lot 21, and District 34, W1 HAP Plan, VIP 522A, substantially in compliance with the permit dated June 4th, 2021.
Okay. Next, okay, seconder? All in favor? Carried. Now the next one.
Move that council approve the development variance permit 2021-04 DV to vary zoning bylaw number 1027 2016 for 3274 3rd Street and 2737 Penrith Ave, same legal description.
Seconder? Councillor Sproul, all in favor? Carried. Next one.
And finally, that council approved the development variance permit 2021-05 DV to vary zoning bylaw 1027 2016 for 2737 Penrith Ave, same legal description.
Yes, okay.
Okay, so 1 second. So the last one is actually different legal description because it only relates to, yeah, we tricked you. It only relates to the property that's fronting Penrith. there's two lots. So
Okay.
the floor to ceiling height variance applies to both, because the three little buildings that, span both lots, but that setback only applies to the
Okay.
rear lot.
So 2737 Penrith Ave, legally described as Lot 11, Block 10, District Lot 21, District 34, W&a-half Plan, VIP 522A to increase the maximum front yard setback by from 1 meter to 8.75 meters.
Second, Councillor Sproul, all in favor? Carried. And the first one you made was a motion and we approved it?
Just the addition that that staff will go in and have further discussion around parking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next, that council received development permit 2601 Dunsmeer Avenue.
Receipt.
Councillor Sproul second, all in favor? Carried.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight, my first report is an application for an ADU at 2601 Dunsmeer Avenue. And the purpose of this report is to request a referral to the Advisory Planning Commission. The applicants are proposing to build a 866 square foot ADU at the rear of the property with a gross floor area of 66.1%, which is underneath or under the 75% permitted. And the applicants comply with all of the guidelines, with the exception of, it's funny, the report says a large black wall, but it's actually supposed to be a large blank wall. I think it's actually brown. And they propose to mitigate the blank wall through the use of landscaping, specifically a trellis, and they proposed a Japanese honeysuckle.
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, so one of my questions is about that blank wall. This ADU and the following ADU both have that giant blank wall. Is that a requirement in the guidelines? It's
No.
just for privacy, that's why they're doing it?
Yeah, so for this one, the 2601, they've actually, the blank wall is facing the primary dwelling. So that is for privacy from the main house. And so the patio is on the other side and the entrance is facing to the interior side yard, essentially. And the guidelines do permit that if it's offset with potentially landscaping or an art installation or something like that, windows. But yeah, the landscaping is permitted.
Okay, sorry, was someone else going to speak?
No, you go right ahead.
So I noticed that there is not a sign on site yet. I presume that's coming.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, thank you. As far as I knew, that was up, but I hadn't walked by. So thank you, Councillor Brown. I'll speak to the applicant about that.
Okay, and we didn't hear anything from the mail out. There's no concerns or anything? No, it looks great. There's tons of space and yeah, looks fine to me.
My only one question was about the parking. And how come they're jutting out so far onto public property? Is that what I'm reading or am I wrong?
Yeah, it does kind of look like that, but their site survey shows it being within the property line from what I understood. I think the way it's angled, I don't know what shape that is, makes it look like it sticks out more, but I'll look into it. We can ask for a legal survey just to verify that lot line, because I know that this has been provided by the landscape designer. So
Okay.
definitely make note of that and ask for that for APC.
Thank you. Any other further questions? No. What would you like to do with it?
I'll move that council refer the application 2021-05 DP for development permit on property described as lot 40 DL 24 plan VIP 13640 2601 Dunsmeer Avenue to the Advisory Planning Committee for a recommendation.
Second. Councillor Sproul, all in favor? Carried. Next, recommend that council receive development permit 2694 Penrith Avenue.
Move receipt.
Seconder, Councillor Kettler, all in favor? Carried.
All right, this is also for a ADU, and this is at 2694 Penrith Avenue. So the applicants are proposing to build a 958 square foot ADU at the rear of the property, which is less than 75% of the GFA of the main home. And the application and supporting documents largely comply with the zoning bylaw and OCP guidelines, with the exception of a large blank wall, once again, facing the laneway. And also staff, sorry, my husband stole my headphones, so I can't quiet the dogs in the background.
I'm glad you spoke up because I was going to say to Councillor Brown, it was hers.
I looked for the headphones so it would be quieter, but they're not in my house. So
That's okay.
Meeting from home. So the other thing that doesn't maybe completely follow the guidelines is the materials proposed to side the house. The applicant has mentioned that it reflects the character of the principal dwelling, but it isn't completely clear how so yet. So I have emailed the agent, and that's is going to a discussion that will continue. Yeah, because staff does have some slight concerns about the massing on the lane, just with the large blank wall.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Brown?
Yes, agreed. The concern of the large blank wall again.
Yeah.
Facing the alley, which is a lovely alley. But my question is about parking. So they're providing the parking via the alley.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, oh, there's my headphones. Sorry, just 1 second. Oh, never mind. They're the wrong ones. So, this is staff wants to look into the laneway parking, bring it up again. I recently was reviewing the OCP guidelines, and rear lane parking is actually encouraged in the bylaw for ADUs. So I also looked at the zoning bylaw in depth, and there's nothing that prohibits it. There's nothing in the snow clearing policy. So council can direct staff to look into this policy that's, it just, I think had been done for a long time, and I'm sort of revisiting it to find potentially why, or if it makes sense to use this following or moving forward with the amount of ADUs.
Mm-hmm. Councillor Brown?
Yes, thank you so much. Because there are inconsistencies all over the village around access from the alley, and can I access from the alley, and where is the parking? And you know that the application we just looked at is trying to fit 4 spots on Dunsmeer, which is kind of like fitting 4 spots on Penrith. It's just not possible, and it opens up a lot more opportunity if people can use the laneway, and as long as nobody complains about not having the snow plowed, you know, why for a few days a year when they can't get out and they have to walk or something, I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of the small roads in town in the winter don't get plowed right away, so there's not a huge difference potentially for access for a few days of the year, but we're looking into it. And it would also be a case-by-case basis, not alleys. All of the alleys are sort of the same. Some of them are really narrow with a lot of encroachments that potentially wouldn't be feasible for a car accessing it regularly, or if they had a truck. So staff would have to look at each case individually as well to see whether that's feasible.
Okay. So what is your pleasure?
I'll move that council
yeah.
refer to application 2021-04 DP for a development permit on property described as Lot 3, Block 4, DL 21, Plan VIP 522, 2694 Penrith Ave to the Advisory Planning Commission for a recommendation.
Second.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, that the heritage protection tools for local government report be received. Councillor Spruill, Councillor Kettler. All in favor? Carried.
Okay, 1 second. I'm just pulling up the report. Okay. Yeah, the purpose of this report is to seek council approval and support for adding the King George Hotel to the Community Heritage Register. You saw it was presented to you and Committee of the Whole over a month ago by Nithu Siam. And then secondly, also to review actions and initiatives that the staff is currently undertaking to promote heritage protection in the village, and also seek a resolution on potential future steps, which you can review as part of your council strategic priorities meeting. So I attached first of all, the statement of significance. I attached the report from Nithu to this report, and you saw it as part of the Committee of the Whole package already. So that's here for your approval and to add that to our Community Heritage Register. And I'll just quickly review some of the actions that are ongoing as part of heritage protection, which is a council strategic priority. So Nithu's report adds the first one of hopefully 3 this year that we hope to do, sites to the Community Heritage Register. Staff have applied for a Heritage Legacy BC fund for a further 2. And each year the Heritage Committee works with staff to try and add 2 sites to the register. So this is one of hopefully 3 that we're going to see this year. Then one of the other initiatives that we had undertaken was to complete, through Jacob's work, who was also a student intern, have a first look at what we can do perhaps to add a density bonus in the downtown core or a community amenity contribution. And initially he presented it, I'm presenting it here as part of the Heritage Committee, Heritage Tools report. And that's because he also looked at heritage conservation, how these tools could help with that. But the scope of his internship was to look both at heritage preservation and affordable housing. And his report found, as he discussed at the Committee of Whole meeting, that really a density bonus is probably more suitable for seeking to encourage affordable housing units, and the amenity contribution may be used for both, but possibly more suitable for heritage protection. So we completed that initial work thanks to Jacob. Then other items that we're working on is to update our village website with respect to heritage. We have a lot of different pages that introduce heritage in different contexts, and within our park system, part of the Heritage Committee and the work that they're doing. But we are going to add a page that provides all the Community Heritage Register listing and just really short descriptions. And then also heritage protection tools that people who are owners on potential developers in Cumberland might be interested in and to have access to. Then the other item that we're working on is to really informing potential buyers and owners in heritage conservation area options for heritage protection. And that's more of a verbal, and so the website will be providing support. But every time someone does approach me about developing within the heritage conservation area, I do broach the subject of potential for heritage revitalization agreement, the tools that are available to them. So we'll definitely continue to do that and continue to build on that. We had providing training to the Heritage Committee to review design. The village is growing really fast, as you all know, and including the downtown core. And so the Heritage Committee agreed to this particular item. They agreed to all the items, but this in particular, they were really keen because they also find that they wanted some additional training to understand design concepts and how to review a design in the downtown core so that it does fit with the heritage character of the downtown core. The other item that we're working on is recruiting heritage professionals to the Heritage Committee. We were lucky to recruit Hugh McLean late last year to the committee, and another call has gone out to recruit additional members. And that's to build on the existing expertise of the committee, which I have to say is really strong in understanding the heritage of Cumberland, heritage interpretation, and arts and culture. So it's really complementing the skills that are there through our recruitment. And then a medium-term item is to build on the work that Jacob has done and review the density bonus community, the amenity contribution in greater detail. And as I said, that would be look at both affordable housing and heritage protection or other potential amenities. So it's really a review of the VCMU1 zone, we should say, but it's nested here in this report. And our recommendation is to bring that forward as part of the Council's strategic priority setting session to decide where that ranks on your levels of priorities of our projects. And then the longer term action items, initiatives are really probably best done as part of the OCP review, the next OCP review. And that's just to check in with the community, whether they wish to see heritage conservation areas in any other parts of the village. And our heritage management plan actually identifies that as one of the things to look into with the next OCP review. So we're following up on that. And then generally check in on the heritage alteration permit guidelines, design guidelines. I think that overall, when you look back, they've resulted in some really good buildings that fit in really well, but it's always good to have a look and see what else we can do or need to do to tweak those guidelines. So that's really for council consideration. Key recommendation is the medium-term initiative to take another look at the VCMU1 zone.
Questions? Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, that's obviously a lot of work went into this report. So thanks so much to Karen and other planning staff for working on this. That's a lot of different steps, and I agree with all of them. I'm still just a little unsure about what to do with the VCMU1 zone with the density bonusing, because it talked about, when we did have it reviewed, that we already have basically the 4 stories, and down zoning didn't seem like a feasible option. So I'm not sure how we would do the density bonusing that we would want. And then they also talked about how it doesn't necessarily work for smaller communities. It's more something that's used in larger communities. So then I also have questions about the effectiveness of implementing something like that. I think we do want to encourage the voluntary protection as much as possible, and I think that is in this report. So I'm happy to see that. Having mandatory protection doesn't seem like it's a viable possibility for us. So yeah, I'm just not sure how to proceed with the village core as far as getting community contributions for housing or for heritage. So
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Yes, thanks so much, Karen. There's a lot in here and lots to think about. I agree that having a look at VCMU1 is necessary. I think we need to find more ways to incentivize that heritage protection, as well as affordable housing in that zone, and maybe a review of the zoning is the way to do that. To look at everything from cash in lieu parking to 4 stories or 3 stories and all the other associated things. I think it's done a great job so far in attracting 3 new apartment buildings, but it's time to have another look. I really like incentives, as the carrot always works better than a stick. And I'm really enthusiastically in support of using a land economist to help us with this conversation, because hopefully they've got some more tools. And I like the idea of an amenity gift because maybe that funding could go into, you know, a land corporation or a development corporation for the village that would help protect some of these buildings and or build affordable housing. So, so thank you. And I look forward to continuing the conversation about VCMU1 and what we do with it.
Councillor Sproul?
Yes, I mean, that I've read it a few times now, and I think there's way more things than I thought we could do. When people talked about amenities, I used to say, well, we can't afford to compensate people, but there are so many other ways of doing it. And one that really interests me is the idea of keeping the facade of the old building and building in behind, or recycling elements. I don't know, rather than see them torn down. There must be some way to work around that. So I think we can really stretch our minds and maybe get something that we need out of this.
What I found, thank you very much, Karen, for all the work. It's obvious things have changed over time of what we can do and what we can't do and the power we have. But I find that Cumberland is very unique, and it's really hard to judge it by other communities. And because of the closeness and the proximity of the buildings. And I really think that we need to look at the parking study and the traffic study before we talk about density bonusing in the downtown core. I think that's really important. We need to know what our different options are with the traffic and parking. So thank you very much for all the work you did. It's really exciting to see things moving forward, even though we need to slow down a little bit in some areas.
So, I mean, you raise good points. And what I like to point out, you know, this look at the VCMU1 zone could also result in some other ideas. We have, when we looked at Ladysmith, for example, just because it also has a really distinctive downtown core, the zoning bylaw. This relates to parking, but you know, it's part of a broader look at the VCMU1 potentially. Parking, it actually, you don't have to pay the parking cash in lieu, or the parking is reduced for existing uses or heritage buildings. So, you know, what Mayor Baird is mentioning, there could be an intersect actually, and looking more closely at incentives to encourage people to retain heritage buildings, retain their facade. And, you know, the work that we've done together, because you've seen the tool section a few times now, really has pointed out to me also how important the heritage revitalization agreements are, which can vary things like density, parking, in return for heritage protection. So it's a super flexible tool. And I think we'll promote that on our website for sure. But also, like I said, when people inquire now, we do mention that option exists. So hopefully someone will take us up on that.
Yeah. The only other thing I would like to recommend is when you have the training session for the Heritage Commission, I would like to have members of council attend if they would like to, because I think it would really help members of council to understand, or not understand, but see how we could do things and what to retain our heritage and the buildings. Mm-hmm. So I think we need to be educated a lot in ourselves, because I know things have changed and there's new tools out there. So I think it'd be good for us to be there too. Mm-hmm. So thank you. So somebody like to make the motion?
I'll move that council add the King George Hotel documented with a statement of significance to the Cumberland Community Heritage Registry, and notify the owners and the minister responsible for the Heritage Conservation Act. And that council directs staff to present options to add a density bonus and or community amenity contribution provision in the VCMU1 Village Core Commercial Mixed Use Zone to promote heritage conservation and affordable housing, and that the timing and priority of this work be reviewed in the next council strategic planning session.
Seconder, Councillor Sproul. All in favor? Carried. Next, recommend that council receive the Union of BC Municipalities Conference Cabinet Ministers Meeting Report.
Receive.
Second, Councillor Stroll, all in favor? Carried.
Good evening, Council. The province has sent its invitation for councils across the province to meet with cabinet ministers at this fall's UBCM. Those meetings will be by telephone or video conference again this year. The deadline to submit requests is the end of this month, so we've got a little bit of time to consider who you'd like to meet with and on what topics. The staff has suggested a couple of meetings, one requesting support for non-market housing, affordable housing projects, and a second again to meet with the Minister of Forests on watershed protection in private managed forest lands. One more time. And I went back to the format for requests last year, and we have the requirements in the report, but also when you fill out the request, they do ask for what your request is of the minister, if you have one. So just to keep that in mind. The topic of discussion and any priority meetings. I think they've always accommodated all requests from us. I don't think we've ever been turned down, other than to direct us to another minister perhaps. But a priority of that meeting would be helpful as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to add the Ministry of Education. And like we did similar to last year, and have the school district involved also with the minister and the discussion. I think it was a very good discussion, and we need to keep that going. Councillor Spruill?
I look back to 2013. Every year since then, we have been wanting to talk to the Minister of Forests and see what we can do, particularly about our wood supply on private forest land. We put that forward for ADICC, so I guess that's going through to UBCM. What does it take to move on a step? I'm not sure. Councillor Brown has an idea. We need to move ahead.
Okay, Councillor Brown.
I have an idea that we skip the Minister of Forests and we go straight to the Premier, along with our friends with private managed forest lands and their watersheds.
Yes, Councillor Kettler.
Yeah, so tomorrow at the CVRD board, there's a motion being brought forward by Director Arbor of Area A regarding imminent logging in Langley Lake watershed, and a secondary motion about reaching out to other communities in a similar position. So I think it would be good if we reached out to Director Arbor to possibly participate in that meeting with the Premier, if we can get that, to talk about logging and drinking water watersheds.
Okay. I know we talked about it and made the motion at the meeting, and we were going to look at forming a committee. Do you want to still do that, or do you want to focus in on a smaller group of people, or do you want it to expand it to include many more areas?
I think the more people we have in similar situations, the more powerful the conversation is. So if Director Arbor is going down that road, I would suggest we join him. But I don't know whether then we make our own request, like each of us make that request, so that it becomes as our first priority. Just some sort of collaboration on that front as well about how we do that. Maybe Rachel knows.
Yes.
I can touch base with the meeting coordinator and see what they recommend.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. And I agree with the two requests. Even though we go to the Premier, we could still go to the Minister. Yeah, I don't know if the premier would invite the minister in with the meeting, but it just in case he doesn't, I think we still need to meet with the minister.
Mhm.
Okay, Councillor.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying that maybe we could form the group and get a letter together to bring to the premier and the
Yes.
minister with multiple communities on it, but then just have a few of us there present at the meeting. So
Yes, you don't want too many there because then not everybody gets the opportunity to speak. So,
yeah.
yeah.
And I also support the meeting with the Minister of Education. I think it'd be good to update them on our plans with the childcare facility as well.
Yes. Okay. So does anybody, and I'd also like to meet with mental health and addiction and the health.
Mhm. Yeah.
And how many do you want? It's the week before UBCM, so that is good. So these are all set up for the week before. So we're not running around or getting on Zoom for other meetings. This will directly be them with the ministers. Yes, Rachel?
Mayor Bear, could I just clarify that was mental health and addiction and
Health.
And with just the general topic, any specific request?
With health, yes, we have a few specific requests. I want to talk about island health.
So health services and mental health, I think, is our, yeah.
It all have to do with services.
Mhm.
So then that's the minister.
Adrian Dix is health, is he not?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and if anybody else thinks of something, please feel free to bring it forward, but we're booking now or the meeting?
June
There's an
30th.
effort to do some backgrounders on each of them.
Yes.
There is an opportunity to bring them back to council, I think on the 28th of June, but the deadline's quite close after that. So it'll be good to prepare them and submit them earlier.
Okay, thank you. All right. Everybody's fine with that? Okay. Next, we have that council. Okay, you don't need a motion. No, we've given her direction. That council received the active transportation planning grant report.
Move receipt.
Second, Councillor Spruill, all in favor? Carried.
Is he here?
I'm here. Good evening, Mayor Barrett and Council. It's good to see you all. I won't take much of your time here. I'm gonna pull this out, sorry. Staff are trying to utilize grant funding opportunity for active transportation planning grant through UBCM. We've worked with a consultant to submit a grant application back on May 21st. And really we're seeking council resolution tonight in support of this application. The grant will provide funding for staff to work with a consultant on a review of existing conditions and inventory of infrastructure related to cycling and pedestrian movement. A mode share survey to better understand how, where, and how people travel within and outside the community, and then of course a review of existing policies, both local and in the valley that are related to active transportation. And then this work will be summarized in a report that staff will then use as part of the transportation master plan work that we'll be doing in 2022. I think I mentioned somewhere, maybe not, the actual grant application is, oh yeah, and the purpose there for $18,790. The cap on the active transportation grant, planning grant is 20,000. So we're just under that amount. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, Councillor Brown?
Fantastic, Rob. Thank you so much. I'm happy to see this moving forward, and I appreciate the scope as well. I just had a thought about how, well, first pedestrians move from, say the Hope Road side of town to this side of town, and whether we'll be looking at alleys and other sort of access routes. It came up in I guess it came up through the active travel, so it'll be covered through that input, but just people trying to find a safe route that way up into the main part of town. And then I was thinking about the when UROC came and they had those heat maps of the cyclists moving through town, and that would be really good data to have as well. And I just didn't see UROC as part of the scope, because they usually are in the trails, but they're also, all those people are riding to the trails from somewhere. So that would be good data to have too. And that's
so some of that data that's available, I'm sure will help inform some of this work. So we've talked to the consultant about that.
awesome.
Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, I'd like to see this sort of give us some data on how we can improve planning as well for new developments. Just thinking of Coal Valley and the lack of green corridors here, it'd be nice to, in future developments, to have more green corridors and active transportation routes. And I don't know if that could be included as part of this study, but that would be nice to see.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? No, so we need a motion.
I'll move that council support the UBCM active transportation grant application submitted May 21st, along with the proposed associated activities.
Second. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, Rob.
Thank you.
Next, that council received the Cumberland 125th anniversary terms of reference report.
Receipt.
Rule, Councillor Kettler, all in favor? Carried. Rachel.
Hi there. So in April, council asked staff to draft up a terms of reference for a committee to draft up plans for the 125th anniversary, which will take place in 2023. So the draft terms of reference are here attached for discussion and approval. And just a couple of highlights. The plan is to have a two-tier committee, a steering committee, which will really drive the draft of an application to the Communities Fund, or the Community Anniversaries Fund, which is a federal program. And as well as a roundtable working group, which is made up of representatives of community organizations, as well as there's a couple other available. We've included agencies and non-voting liaison from some agencies, school district, Island Health for Cumberland Lodge, and the Comox First Nation, and also invitation for businesses, representatives from businesses to act as non-voting advisors, capacity on sort of technical issues and that sort of thing. So the draft is here for your discussion.
Questions, Councillor Brown?
Yeah, this looks great. Thank you, Rachel. I did think of another group, and I'm not sure where they belong, but Elevate, puts on market days, and they did the concerts in the park and stuff like that. So they could join as well. And then I'm just a bit concerned about, I understand the desire to have someone from a governing body, but I think in some situations it might be better for the executive director to attend. So maybe we leave that open to the organization to figure out.
Actually, I've talked to every group that is on here, and they all agreed that it would be a member of the board.
Okay, then.
Yes, they're quite excited about it. What the reasoning behind it was that it is so much easier for a board member to get support from the board than the executive assistant has. This was brought to me by an executive assistant that said sometimes it can be very difficult to get the board on side. And she felt that it would be better if it was a board member giving direction, because the executive assistant would also be involved in the discussion of what they would plan to do. So that's why we went with the board member. And every one of them has no issue, I've talked to all of them. The other part to that was Elevate the Art would be under the umbrella and come in with the Event Society. Because that's their focus. Yes, I understand that, but that's what it was deemed to be.
Okay, but they're a totally separate organization.
For the market days.
Yeah, and all the other events they produce.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes, anyone else? Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, no, I'm happy with the policy. I was looking through the list, and I'm glad to see that Comox First Nation was on there as well. So that's good. I hope that they'll be able to have somebody contribute. And I'm happy to move the motion if there's no further comments.
Okay. Thank you. Second? All in favor? Carried. Next, we have the council received the Cumberland Child Care Update Report.
Received.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Hello, Mayor and Council. Good to be in front of you again. Tonight, report in front of you just for information and an update on where we're at with the child care project. It's been a few weeks now since we're finally formally permitted to make the announcement. So I'm sure yourselves and others are anxious to know where it's at. So there's a bunch of background information I'm sure much of you know, but I think most of interest is sort of the steps that we have to go through in order to get this project on the go. Initially, this first start is really around that planning piece of getting the right people and the right pieces in place to be able to drive on things like construction and site design and all those other things. And so as I've laid it out in front of you, the first thing is to work with the school district to come to an agreement and understanding of how a facility we build will occupy their land and what that relationship is going to be like over the long term. As per the needs of the grant, we need to provide childcare in this space for a minimum of 15 years. So, making sure we have a strong agreement in place with the school district that allow that to happen. Secondly, we're going to need some project management, some project lead support. And quite plainly, I've laid it out as looking at things in sort of that physical building construction planning side and that side around relationships and facility licensing and operations. And so bringing those two bodies of knowledge to the table to support staff and to support work with the school district as well. And that will lead us into things like project design, project construction, what the building looks like, where it's designed, where it fits on that lot, as well as all the other types of improvements we have planned within the budget, like curbing and sidewalks and paths and all that stuff. And that place will need to be completed pretty significantly before we can kind of start into any sort of significant construction and other type of planning. So as I've kind of described it for you, our loose project schedule at this point is to get this planning in place over the next 6 months and lead into construction and development and site development next year and be operational and open by January, February, winter of 2023. So, I see Clayton's on here now, so that's about all I have. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Well, thank you very much for giving us an update, Kaylin. I know there's people out there that are just waiting to hear what's going to happen and when it's going to start and when they can actually get daycare. So
Yeah.
I know we've got a long road to go to get to there, but thank you very much for your report.
No, the first day we announced it, I got 6 calls asking for ECE jobs. And so this is a good fit. And there's going to be a lot of that kind of touch point work with the community as well, Mayor. And so, you know, within that project lead, you know, pulling all our different groups, just like our big celebration with the university, we want to make sure we get the right people at the table, the community school society, and making sure we have the input from local childcare operators to make sure that our community benefits from this project as best we can.
Okay. Councillor Kettler?
Yeah, 85 spaces is significant. It's a lot. So I'm really looking forward to having that, providing that for our community. I'm a little concerned about staff capacity. I know it was mentioned in the report that we may have to throw this into our strategic planning session to see what might possibly need to get bumped. So that's a little bit of a concern. But hopefully we've budgeted properly for project management and the other help that we'll need to push this through. It is a pretty tight timeline. So yeah, I hope we can pull it off.
Fingers crossed, I agree. And there is budget available within our award for the project management and project administration processes as well. So yeah. We knew when we started that we may not have the capacity to do this.
Councillor Spruill?
Yes, it's great. Very good news. I mean, we often ask for money and here we are, we got it. That was a wonderful, I mean, it's due to the hard work of staff and council. Back to what you mentioned about community childcare operators. I can think of many who've been doing this for 20, 30 years. How will they fit into this system? Because 85 places, I mean, I just don't know how we make sure they don't get left behind.
Yeah, well, in 85 childcare spaces is a lot of capacity for a childcare operator. And so, you know, this might be a long range plan with local operators. I know in our community, 14 kids might be the largest operator we have. The hand-to-hand, of course, are not, you know, because of the lack of a facility, aren't considered licensed childcare work. So, you know, we need to understand what those challenges are so that we down the road could potentially make opportunities for them as well. So, you know, part of that is understanding what the challenges are. You know, but I do get inquiries from existing childcare operators, mostly notably home occupation type business childcare operators looking for space. And I know 85 spots is a lot. It's 25% of what that report tells us we need. And so, you know, conversations with the ministry are always good to have. We're not at the end of the road yet. And so we'll continue to look for other ways to create this opportunity.
So just to reiterate, how will they be consulted? How will they be brought into this process?
Yeah, and that's a good, you know, it's part of, there's a big part of, especially the consultation that we need to understand and as well is licensing and operations. So we'll need to, you know, as part of the skill set I noted within the study of a project lead is somebody who can help us lead that engagement. You know, somebody who's been part and understands the licensing and childcare world. So they can understand when we bring these people to the table for input. You know, we're essentially, the way we've built out the project is 4 separate spaces. And is there an opportunity here to, you know, go 25 kids? There's one opposite space is from 0 to 30 months is 10 kids. So, you know, long range understanding how is there different opportunities within this building, breaking up this building. I think we also need to be mindful that there may be shifts within the provincial government about how they manage and regulate childcare. And so this may be falling under a ministerial type authority down the road. So, you know, these are all just parts of this planning conversations of us understanding where we are.
Councillor Brown?
Yeah, thanks, Kaylin. It's awesome to see this moving forward. I have had similar questions about actually how the service is provided and whether that needs to be one service provider or multiple service providers, and how we might make that work in terms of building design that suits, say, infants and youth in the same building. And so wanting to know that we would be included in the design process, including siting, because I know there will be concerns about tree removal and the disc golf and all that sort of thing on the property. And I presume we've put the application in for that specific property, but that the school site is actually quite an enormous site, and I'm not convinced that that's the best location for the childcare, but maybe everybody else is. So I think it would be valuable for us to be included in those conversations, whether that's happening with, maybe we need to set up a meeting with the school board to talk about their perspective on the siting. It is their property after all. But the lot that's there is being used by the community, and it's one of the few green spaces up in that area. So if we can preserve that in some way, in whether we use the lot or not, I think that would be really beneficial for the community. And then, just figuring out how that. I know the facilities report has just come out, and so how does the childcare? How is that integrating with the facilities management plan for Cumberland? All good, meaty conversations for the future, I suppose.
You've just described the entire conversation we need to have with the school board and how we move forward, right? And I know Clayton's got his hand up, but I also like to acknowledge within this grant and within this grant award, there remains this, I don't like to say flexibility, but the government knows, the provincial government, and the way this program was designed, that when we submitted our application, it was very preliminary understanding of what our job was, like what we're going to build. We haven't looked at that site and figured out where is best, and what's the best use of where things are situated within that land. Part of that physical limits of the land is going to determine how we build as well. So we need to get into all of that stuff and identify how it's going to sit. And then, part of that is coming up with those ideas and those preliminary designs and bringing them out and talking to people. But until we can get to the point where we can actually talk about what it looks like, I know our planners can attest, it's always great to have something drawn and something to talk about before we talk about what ifs and not. Operational is a big thing on childcare as well, how these facilities interact with each other, how they interact with the school, and how is that school going to grow over time in these two spaces interface. Who wants to take on the responsibility of maintaining this facility over a long time? These are all pieces of the puzzle that we need to figure out. I agree.
Was there somebody else that wants to ask anything? Councillor Sproul, did you? Okay, fine. Thank you very much. There is a
your worship. Just one thing just to note is just that's been mentioned. We have already started discussions with the school district, the administration, and our intent is the next step is to take where we are with this project to the board as well to provide an update. I know I've spoke with the mayor about this to try and find a way just to allow them to become more familiar with it. So a lot of work to be done in the next number of months. This is definitely going to be a front end loaded type of project where there's going to be a lot of engagement. And I would just one little note that was mentioned. Yeah, this last part is about the long-term operation of this. I mean, this is another facility that's going to be online, and the idea of having 15 small groups in there could be a really creative idea, but we need to there is probably going to need to be one stakeholder group that's going to be able to kind of coordinate that group. So these are all the type of options that we need to look at, and really we're not the first to go down this path, and we're gonna take the experience that have happened up and down the island. I mean, the model that we presented is one that was done. The actual building was one that was built in Victoria. So we're no reason to be start something that's going to be really difficult. We've got some really great feedback from the ministry and from other providers right now. So yeah, lots of work ahead though.
Councillor Brown?
So there is a drawing of a building somewhere?
Well, we have the part of the application that would have council would have seen many months ago. What last fall there is a proposed drawing from the building. It was a modular building that was in place way back. This would have been November. Yeah. So it's basically a very high level modular site that has, you know, rooms, sleep areas. I think there's 2 modular buildings that would be on the site there, but that's just what was part of the proposal. Will it be a modular site or modular building? That's to be determined. We don't know. See, that's the other factor, to be honest. A lot of these, our conversations with other grant recipients is the challenge of the costing of building this right now. We certainly have not come in at the easiest time. And a lot of the groups that there's a number of groups that are doing a couple things. One is they're waiting because they just know that they just are not going to be able to afford when they design this out. They know for a fact that the cost is going to be way over what they had estimated. So that's where we need to get the architect on board and help guide us through that process and find out what those efficiencies are and how we can do that. And there may be some other options that we may need to look at based on the cost, and those are things that we'll certainly flush out. But there is no all we have is a proposal. But it hasn't been finalized in the sense of drawings or anything like that. We'll have to engage an architect to do that work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your report. Moving along, next we have council monthly reports. And my report is there. I'm not going to go through it. It's quite lengthy. If there's anything anybody would like to highlight or ask me to expand on, please do. I do have one report that I want to talk about, and that's the non-announcement of the 3 lots from the Transition Society and the Dawn to Dawn. They were not successful in getting any funding. So I was fortunate that the board member from Dawn to Dawn phoned and told me before, so I knew what was happening. And I said that I would follow up to find out why they did not receive the funding. My phone call to Malcolm McNaughton of BC Housing was that the Dawn to Dawn and the Transition Society will get a debriefing of what happened and why they were not selected. They actually had 2,970 units applied for on Vancouver Island. From the various applications, they had over 47 applications. They've never had that amount before. Malcolm did tell me that the application was very well done. They did everything that they were requested to do. That I asked him if, because we did not waive DCCs, if that was an issue. He said absolutely not. It did not play in the decision at all. They knew how committed the village was to supporting this, but he felt that they were going with larger projects that would be larger hit to the community. It would do more in a community. I think most of them were over 50 units, if not larger. Anyway, during the discussion, I also heard that one of the communities had applied for funding, received the funding, but their council did not approve their plan. That afternoon, the council meeting, they had to come out a meeting and they did not support their proposal. And I asked him if that money would be back on the table. And he said, no, we will be working with them to get it a successful product out of it. So, because I thought it would be back on the table. The problem with this is I asked him when the next intake would be, when we could look at more funding. He said 18 months. And that is hard to accept, that we have to wait another 18 months. And so I would think that we need to go and talk to the Premier about that. These people cannot keep waiting for housing, and smaller communities need it just as much as the larger ones. And so we need to see if we can make something happen. And I told the people from the Dawn to Dawn that I would keep them informed as to what. I did phone them back and tell them everything that Malcolm had said. And yeah, so that's where it sits. So we just have to take the political route now and see if they will release more money. They actually, it is a 10-year program the NDP has, and they've been in for 3.5 years. So we're not sure if they're willing to release more money. Yes, Karen.
Yeah, I spoke to the applicant too. And of course, it's really heartbreaking because they put so much effort into this. And so I wanted to really acknowledge all the time and effort that has gone into it. They haven't given up, so that's the good news. They are seeking funding from the federal government next, which has a grant out. So
yes,
hopefully we'll hear more.
Mm-hmm. And I did say that if there was anything more that we could help them along the way, please let us know, and we would proceed with that. But I think we're not the only community that was not successful. So I'm sure the provincial government is going to hear more from the communities about the needs in their communities. So anyway, that was, I didn't know what else we could do at this point other than going the political route and seeing if we can get some money leveraged out. So any questions on the rest of my report? Oh, just to say the Event Society's parade, it was absolutely wonderful again this year. Commend them for continuing the tradition. It is amazing that they were able to do that and not lose that continuous ribbon for their event. They did put it on YouTube, and anybody can go on and watch it. They've had a tremendous amount of people watching it. They've been very impressed by it. And it was nice to see the girls and the little boys look absolutely amazing. They did an amazing job. It took a while to get the video of the ceremony. There was a couple of little mishaps along the way, but Fox and Bee did an amazing job. So it went very well. Okay, next, if ready, Councillor Sproul.
Am I off? Yes, I'm on. I mean, yeah, well, you see my report before you. I won't go into all the details. I seem to spend a lot of time at the museum these days, which is fitting given that I'm the rep from council. But I have been asked to be part of a small accessioning and conversely deaccessioning committee. And that is making decisions or affirming the decisions that museum staff will make in what will be on in the collections on show and not. If you remember a few years ago, there were some problems over that in that the then management of the museum just started deaccessioning, but not giving their reason for doing that. So now there's very clear guidelines, like if anything's broken or not from Cumberland, like stuff like that. And that's all. I can send that information if people want to know, because I know it was really kind of traumatic, really, for the community to see that stuff was being sold off that they had donated and without a lot of background. So with this, it's very clear language of what is being looked at for accessioning and deaccessioning. So it's really quite fun, actually, seeing all the stuff. And yeah, the AGM was quite impressive. I think Leslie was there and Councillor Brown, and the caliber of the people that are working at museum, who've worked in museums all over the world. And I think, whoa, here they are in Cumberland. So It will be open soon. There's a couple of hitches and it's getting very close. So keep your ears open. Well, we'll hear about it first. That's it. That's it.
Councillor Brown?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. There's just one correction that I need to make on mine, which is May 28th. The Beavers, Stories, Science and Stewardship was not part of AVICC, as you may know if you were at AVICC. It's in the wrong spot there, but it was very interesting.
Oh.
It's not my first beaver presentation. The last one was a different topic though. And beavers are fascinating creatures and we have a lot of them and they're doing a lot of work right now. The wetland is very full again. And encouraging us and Public Works who maybe don't love beavers to continue to work with the beavers because they're ingenious creatures that really help wetlands. And I did want to bring something forward from the accessibility committee meetings. We've been talking about the fact that we're called accessibility and inclusion committee, and we've been very focused on physical accessibility in the village, and the committee is interested in expanding the inclusion part of the committee to work on more diversity and equity topics. If council is amenable to that, I can bring back a more fulsome report. We found a few examples from other municipalities that have combined those two things and are doing a bit more with it. Are people
I think it's really appropriate to do that. I think it's great.
Given the last year and all the things we've learned, I think it would be good to have a landing place for those issues in the village.
Okay. Oh, and congratulations. I didn't mention it in my report, but you were re-elected to the First Credit Union Board.
Yeah, thanks.
Yes.
It was a tough election, I'll tell you.
Well, it was really interesting. It was nice to see so many people. We actually have 3 members on the board from Cumberland. Yeah, so that's a really good thing to have. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, Councillor Kettler.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I want to go back to us not getting the BC housing funding for that affordable housing project. Super disappointing. But we will look for other options and keep pushing because it is desperately needed. And there is a long wait list and we need to make this happen. So I just wanted to speak to that. Yeah, my report's there. There's lots happening at the regional district, but I wrote it all in there. Just to mention that the Emergency Operations Center Leadership Policy Group has been discontinued until further need. It sounds like we have met and exceeded our vaccination targets in order to move to step 2 of the restart plan for BC. So that's good news. That'll happen this week. And yeah, if it keeps going well, then we won't, this policy group won't have to reconvene, hopefully. And that's all for now, unless there's any questions.
Fine. So can I have a motion to receive? Councillor Spruill, Councillor Brown, all in favor? Carried. Bylaws. The council received the report application for an OCP amendment and rezoning of 2782 Ulverston Avenue.
Move receipt.
Second.
All in favor? Carried.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm back. I'm just scrolling to the report. Yeah, so this report introduces bylaws that amend both the OCP and the zoning bylaw to permit to rezone a property at 2782 Alveston Avenue from a residential infill to a multifamily land use designation and also a multifamily zone. And the applicants are bringing forward this application are seeking to bring the property into compliance. So currently there's a mini storage building on the property and then a fourplex, and the mini storage property is a legal non-conforming use, meaning at a certain point in time in the past that property was zoned light industrial and the mini storage building was permitted, and they obtained the appropriate permit to get that building, to have that building on the site. The fourplex was never a permitted use and also does not have the required building permits. So they recently purchased a property with the intention to bring it into compliance with our bylaws and renovate the building, the fourplex. To be able to do that, to be able to get a building permit, they need to have the use needs to be permitted in the zoning bylaw. So that's the main intent behind these two bylaw amendments. I just quickly review. So the fourplex currently, essentially the immediate plan is to just renovate the fourplex, meet the life safety requirements of the building code, include put firewalls in, upgrade the buildings so that actually the tenants can get insurance, which they currently cannot because it's not compliant. And then in the future, we discussed with the applicants if in the future they ever want to take down the storage building, they wish to be able to redevelop the site with an additional fourplex building rather than seeking to have a mini storage, a mixed use zone, which would have been mini storage and the fourplex. So that's the long-term intent, is potentially being able to replace the mini storage building. Even at this point, they also are fixing that one up, so there's no immediate intent to do that. So this would be the zone that staff drafted, would be the village's first rental tenure zone, which is a new authority under the Local Government Act that municipalities can have rental tenure as a use and as a requirement. And in discussion with the applicant, we felt that most closely matches what they have now. And it doesn't involve massive upzoning for a use that wasn't actually legitimate initially. If we had just zoned it multifamily, and they could maybe turn it into multifamily dwellings and sell them. So this that seemed like a good compromise. They allowed them to continue to operate as is, as rental, and allows the village to retain the rental units. So when staff drafted the zone, we did include a density bonus in that if they redevelop it, that they have access to more units. Potentially, if a third of them would be below market rent, rather than affordable. So the trick with rentals is that the break-even point is just different than with the if you have built a new apartment building and you designate a few of them as affordable, which is matched to the income of the a lower income. So the below market rent is a lower rent, but not as sort of the level of what we call an affordable rent, which is 30% of someone's low income. So that's in recognition that this is a rental tenure. And so this went to the Heritage Committee and the Advisory Planning Commission. What initially we had in the zone description was apartment as another possible use in the future. So if, say, they demolish both buildings or both burn down, they could replace it with an 8-unit apartment building or up to another 6 units if they made use of that density bonus. So this came to DAPC was not supportive. It was divided votes. So 2 members were supportive, 3 were not, of having apartment as a permitted use in that zone. And it somewhat mirrors one of the neighbors' comments who we got, also wasn't happy with apartment, didn't feel that was fitting in a single residential zone. So staff has since amended changed the proposed bylaw to include townhouse and fourplex rather than apartment and fourplex. And the difference there is townhouses can be all attached, but they have all separate entrances. So they tend to fit a little bit better into a single residential neighborhood than an apartment block, which is a shared common entrance. That's the main difference, same density. So we did amend the bylaws. And I should say, before I forget this, when I amended the bylaw, I still have apartment under the parking, not points 3 and 4. So if you are in a moment, if you are approving the bylaws to go forward to first and second reading, we need to say that we're substituting apartment, townhouse for apartment under section 3 and 4 of the zoning bylaw amendment. I can guide you through that, or Rachel can. So then the Homelessness and Affordable Housing Committee also had an interesting discussion, and being the mandate of the committee is to increase affordable housing availability in the village. They wish to see staff explore with the applicant that half of the units, the existing units, be at a more of an affordable rent or below market rent, which we defined as 90% of the average rent that the Canada Housing Mortgage Corporation each year determines for the region. So I did discuss that with the applicant, and they did provide a response. They do not want to change the application, and the response is provided as one of the attachments. And the rationale in the response is attachment 4 was the significant upgrades that are required to bring the current property rental units into compliance with the BC Building Code, because it was never built to code. And they felt they could not afford to charge a lower rent, so they were not interested in changing the application for those reasons, just basically feasibility for them as because they're renovating, and then they do need to recover that. So they have made a commitment to their tenants that they can move back in. Currently only one, they're trying to go through it. I think one tenant did have to move out. There's a commitment that they can move back in if they wish to do so in the future. But that unit required the most upgrades, and they needed to go look into the walls to see what they were dealing with. The other tenants, they feel they can probably retain and keep in a state. They can stay in the units while some of the updated renovations are happening. They have a family in there in one of the units that's on income assistance, and they do say they wish to work with them to ensure that they can also stay. So that's it in a summary. I think I missed anything. There's no variances required. We're creating a new zone, an RM5, a rental tenure zone for this. Yeah.
Questions? Councillor Brown?
Yeah, I love the rental zone that we're putting that to use. That's awesome. And that they are legalizing a formerly not legal building, but I'm struggling with the allowing the density bonus for just below market rent. I think if we're going to, so right now they've got a fourplex, conceivably they could take down the second building and put another fourplex, which makes 8, which is a significant upzone from what they've already got. And then we're offering to give them 16, I think was the final number, if a third of them are below market rate. But so that's just a huge upzone.
Yeah, it would be an additional 6, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, it would be an additional 6, so altogether 14, but yeah.
Okay, 14 total. So I wonder if being below market is enough for that sort of density bonus, or whether we should be asking for more than that. And then I agree with the that I think aesthetically and in terms of our livability and all of that, townhouses work better than apartments. So I'm happy with that adjustment as well. I'm just, is there something between affordable based on your income and 10%? Like, could we ask for 20%? Like, I don't know what the leeway there is there. I feel like it's a big give.
I can
And
just
all the ask really is for them to keep it as rental.
Yeah, Courtney might want to add, but I'll just explain briefly. So what's proposed? So the below market is based on the Canada Housing Mortgage Corporation average rent for the Comox Valley, broken down by unit every year. So to say in year X, 2015, say they start that, then that year it would be that rate, and then the increase could only happen at whatever the province allows each year, right? The increase to be. So generally, and we found that with the housing needs report, that rate, the average rate tends to be on the lower side. And actually BC Housing uses in their definition below market rent. They just use the average rent, their definition of below market rent. So we actually already did lower it a little bit by saying minus 10%. So actually, when you look at the rates, the agent put that in his report, the current CMHC rates, they are a little lower than what you actually get to have to pay to currently. So they're already a bit low, and then the proposal was to lower them by 10%. Yeah, the intent also is that there would be some kind of housing agreement would have to be on title, but that the units potentially be rented to a nonprofit society, just because the village is not really, doesn't have the resources to manage and monitor that kind of thing. So if you had an affordable rent, it would be the same. I guess the housing society would manage what that would be, and because it's pegged to a person's income, a low income person's income, right? 30% less income. So it's not a specific rate. And then that makes it also hard for the owners to predict what kind of rent they might be getting. So it's a bit trickier. The housing society could top that off, and sometimes they do when they rent units on behalf of their clients. But I don't know, that's probably doesn't quite answer your question, but it's the trick is that it's rental, and the profit margin isn't as big, but yeah.
Okay, Councillor Sproul.
Well, this is a bit off topic, but that gravel lane on attachment 1 that shows behind the building is actually the Wellington Colliery Railway. It ran straight up Alveston, and that's the route it took, and then across to East Park. So if there's any chance of us getting anything about some upzoning, I wonder whether we'd be able to get that. It's not down as railway, but it should be.
Yeah, it's our lane, so the village it's already in public hands, if that's the one calling it. The lane there is public lane.
Okay, that's true.
Yeah, but thanks for letting me know that. Yeah,
that's true.
Okay, Councillor Kettler.
Thanks. So the new rental tenure zoning, I think is great, and will be wonderful to have that in the toolkit. I'm just wondering about the versatility of what we're doing. If you're pulling out the apartment, and we're only allowing townhouses within that zoning, are we catering too much to this specific site? Will we be able to use this zoning in other areas that we might want apartment buildings?
You're right. We're getting sometimes it's tricky to reuse reuse a zone. And I should point out this rental tenure, you can actually you can have an entire zone that's rental tenure zone, which is the case here. But you can actually also have a zone where only a proportion of it is rental tenure. So you can mandate that in a regular multifamily zone, 30% is rental tenure. So I'm not sure we would reuse this zone. It's really hard to say. You're right. It's often does end up being quite site specific. And when does that opportunity come along? Possibly not too often to rezone it entirely to 100% rental tenure. So I'm not that concerned about it. It's sometimes, yes, I like to have zones that we don't, they're more universally applicable. But in this case, it's pretty good to have 100% rental tenure zone. So you may or may not replicate that. I think that's fine. And then if a new proposal comes in, you can look at that separately and what kind of zone might be appropriate and what level of or percent of rental tenure might be appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, at the Affordable Housing Committee, we did discuss the housing security of the current tenants. And as you stated in your report, they are doing their best to accommodate, but there is no guarantee, I guess, for those current residents that once everything's renovated, that they will be able to maintain that or have the same level of rent. So that is not something that we've been able to secure with the current owner.
Okay. So what is your pleasure, council? I think they've really tried hard to accommodate the present renters, and they seem to be going above and beyond trying to keep them there. So I really like that part of it, but it'll be interesting to see what the public says, because what I read from the letters and the support was that everybody in the area likes the idea. So it'll be interesting to see what actually comes out at a public hearing. So what is your pleasure?
Okay, the council give first reading to bylaw 1149, cited as official community plan amendment bylaw number 1149, 2021. And that council gives second reading to bylaw 1149, cited as official community plan amendment bylaw number 1149, 2021, having considered the impact on the current financial plan and waste management plan. That council give first and second reading to bylaw 1150, cited as zoning amendment bylaw number 1150, 2021. Is that where you want with the apartment?
Yeah, so if you can say add with the amendment. Oh yeah, maybe Rachel.
You want me to say, Rachel?
I had some time to write something down. So I would suggest that the motion be that council alter zoning amendment bylaw number 1150, 2021 to replace apartment with townhouse in sections 3 and 4 and give first and second reading to the bylaw.
Sounds great.
So moved.
Second, Councillor Spruill.
There's more. Sorry, there's more. The council staff to schedule a public hearing for bylaw 1149 and bylaw 1150 on July 19th, 2021 at 7 p.m. And that council refer bylaw 1149 and bylaw 1150 to School District 71 and BC assessment for comment. Now the second.
Now you second. Okay, all in favor? Carried. We have no new business, no notice motions and announcements. We have question period, so please submit your questions to info@cumberland.ca using question period as the subject line. Thank you very much. And we'll give them a few minutes. Yes, Rachel, you're on.
We did have some questions submitted earlier, which is nice. So we can, I'll just bring those up and read them to you here. The first one is a question about the active transportation planning grant. And the question is, why does the agenda item regarding a grant for active transportation planning not satisfy the climate change strategic objective? It is unchecked.
Oh, Rob, is he still here?
I am.
And somebody picked up that you didn't check off the climate?
This is a planning grant, so it doesn't really address climate change. If it was an infrastructure grant, so it was actually to construct some form of active transportation infrastructure, then it would. At this point, it doesn't really satisfy that requirement and why it wasn't checked.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
Okay, and there's another question regarding the heritage alteration permit on 3rd Street. Is council aware of any liability approving the heritage alteration permit on 3rd Street due to the gas station storage tank?
Is
I
that something?
can perhaps just let you know where that's at. So the applicant was required to complete a site disclosure form as part of the application, which they did, and then as part of the True Green cannabis application, they actually did an environmental site assessment for that same property, where the lower part now or towards the lane is going to be part of this the community urban bazaar. And yes, so that used to be a gas station, absolutely, and with an underground storage tank. So in the environmental site assessment identified two potential site contamination issues, that one, and then also Vandal's auto body shop being an auto body shop. So that was submitted to the, there was full disclosure, and that was submitted to the province that administers the contaminate site legislation. And they responded and said, because it qualifies for the exemptions, which is when you don't disturb you don't excavate, you don't dig into the ground, it can proceed. So in staff's view, the appropriate steps are followed. The information was sent to the province, and they said if there's no soil disturbance, then it does qualify. So there's going to be some soil disturbance on the property behind True Green, but that's not where the gas station was. So the soak away pit and the water line and sewer that connects to the little washroom there would be on that property. So what on the little portion that's next to Rados Auto Body has to be very minimal. So there's no it's all going to be on grade construction.
Okay, thank you. Any more, Rachel? Your mic's.
I'll just take a peek here. It doesn't look like there's any more.
Okay, well, thank you very much. 2 good questions. Next, close the meeting to the public. Someone want to make the motion?
I haven't got the words in front of me because I have to go back many pages on my cell phone, but I make a motion to close the meeting to the public on our
Section 90 of the community charter.
section 90.
Okay, seconder, Councillor Brown, all in favor? Carried. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Carried.